Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to On Track GP, and we're here because we've just had the final launch of the season. Red Bull have just formally shown off their RB20. It's not like it was a secret. We kind of already seen it during the week, but this was our first proper look at it. And I have to say, to get a first proper look, it's a lot different than I thought it was going to be. So joining me again today is Jamie. How are you doing, Jamie? You good?
Very well, Colin. Just joining you from Italy again. How you doing?
Yeah, not so bad. You enjoying Italy?
Yeah, it's been a wild trip so far. I haven't seen many Ferraris, to be fair.
I was saying to you the other day, we should have got you down to Maranello.
That would have been one. But it didn't have anything on the launch today, for sure.
No, it was quite crazy launch. What did you think?
Best launch so far, and that is an unbiased opinion. That was genuinely. I sat there, and the first time watching a launch going, I loved the history and seeing the details of the previous cars and the previous drivers. Loved listening to David Coulthard. Thought he had a lot to say, which was great. And then the actual release of the livery / what could be essentially a working model of the RB20 was so well executed. I think it's everything that Stake wanted their launch to be, but Red Bull have just gone and taken it that bit further. It was a show without being over the top, and the car is definitely something else.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, the big launch has a lot to do with the fact that it's actually Red Bull's 20th season in Formula One. I didn't actually notice. It still only feels like a couple of years ago since they came in, but to see what they've done in that 20 years and what they've been able to achieve has been quite the journey so far.
It's quite incredible, and I think they're firmly on their way to becoming one of the prestige teams of Formula One. With the consistency they've had and the level of success they've had, it won't be long before we talk of Red Bull being the same as a Ferrari, and McLaren, and Mercedes, a Williams in terms of that pedigree in Formula One, if they haven't established it already.
Yeah, for sure. Well, of course, to kick off their 2024 season, they launched today the RB20. And like I said at the start of the video, we kind of got a bit of a look at it through spy photos at Silverstone during the week and that. And initially, from those pictures that we saw online, I initially thought, oh yeah, they've played conservative, they've gone safe, they've gone with a kind of a replica from last year's car. But upon closer detail, it is a lot more than that.
It definitely is. And there is a lot to cover, from not just the pull rod system, but the really clever cooling system they've come up with, and Adrian Newey has come up with. On top of that, the side pods, I was not expecting that, and it's incredibly clever. Also, the Venturi tunnels, going with the over design instead of the under design from last year. There's so many things where Red Bull have taken what was already successful and refined it even further. I'm very excited about what this car can do. We may have a Ferrari 2004 send this car back for checks situation again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, the one thing that took my mind was when I seen the photos was the Bargeboards. I mean, they're like claws or something. I could imagine them looking like that when you look at the car in the rearview mirror. You know, it's really highly detailed. I think it's going to be pretty special.
The rear wing as well is that's another part of it. Especially looking at borderline full detachment, and it looks really clever. I have to read up the specifics, being the massive F1 nerd that I am, but I think whatever they were thinking of doing in terms of aerodynamics, they've ramped it up to 110%. For this ground effect era for the next 2 years, we may be looking, and again, unbiased here, we may be looking at full Red Bull dominance based on this. There's things going on with that car. I'm sure you saw from the side of the cockpit, the over and round edging on the side that comes out from the halo down the back for the added cooling line. That in itself looks so different from what we've seen from a lot of the cars. And then, of course, the front of the Venturi channels changing the way the airflow is going to go, so that you're not losing part of the airflow up and over. We're pushing it down straight away. There's huge things to this. And then on top of that, like we spoke about yesterday, the pull rod system looks really dynamic. So I'm incredibly excited about this, and also a little bit I imagine it's quite daunting to look at it and go, this might be the car that does 24 out of 24 here.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, there's been quite a few different things we saw in the RB20. Kind of reminds me of Mercedes. A couple of years ago when they're in their dominant run, sometimes they'd launch a new car and they'd put, I don't know, a new style or new side pods or something, and people would look at it and think, oh, I don't know about that. But then, of course, when they hit the track, there was no denying it was the right decision. So, yeah, definitely be interesting to see how they get on.
And the livery as well. Just to talk about the vanity side of things, it's very classic Red Bull. I was thinking just for a second that there was going to be those splashes of white from like the first Red Bull, with like the white Bargeboards and even like the white side pod area. And I thought, oh, just maybe, but it is that very classic dark blue. And I mean, the yellow nose cone is so iconic at this point. It's synonymous with Red Bull now. And it just looks like a very much more refined, angrier RB19. But I think for the first time as well, Sergio looks happy. And I think that was a big part of it. When he got asked the question after saying, you helped Max and Red Bull win the title, that's not the way to phrase that. Like, but both of them seemed very happy with the package they've got at the moment.
When you're talking about Sergio, there was one thing I noticed in one of the clips before they showed the car reveal, and I thought it was a very kind of like cheeky inside editor job, where there was this part where everybody's been asked, Red Bull, well, what does the team mean to you? And he said, it's a team of people helping other people. And then straight away there was a cut to Verstappen laughing. And I just thought, like, oh, that's cheeky. But well, what type of season do you see for Perez this year? Do you see a much better season? Do you see a season where upgrades come in and he's unconfident again?
The fact of the matter is, he didn't actually have a bad season last year. It's only because you're comparing to essentially ultimate dominance from Max. And I know from podcasts and videos, I've sort of been a bit of a Lance Stroll, Sergio Perez apologist, sort of, but genuinely, it wasn't that bad a season. And he helped bring a 1-2 to Red Bull, super dominance in the constructors. It wasn't a bad season. I think he now just refines that season, and he's got nothing to lose by going all out because he's got to put himself in the shop window. I would be more than happy if we continue with Max and Sergio until 2026. I don't see an issue with that at all. I think they're a great partnership and they've worked. I'd be keen to see who they would have on the boards as like coming in to replace and have that second seat. For me, it wouldn't be Daniel Ricciardo at this point. I said in the previous video, I think he will stay at RB now. So is it Carlos Sainz? Is it is it Liam Lawson? So for me, it's going to be a huge season for Sergio Perez, either to retain the seat or put himself in the shop window for potentially Mercedes.
Yeah, definitely. I think it could be a good strong season for him. And even talking about last year, like you just mentioned, it wasn't that bad of a season. In fact, if you think about it, last year was the first time Perez ever finished second in the Drivers' Championship. We all think of exiting in Q1 and everything, but it wasn't really that bad for him. And when you're going up against Verstappen, what can you expect?
It's Verstappen in a car built for Verstappen, and there's no real sort of getting away from that fact. But for someone who doesn't drive like Max to take the car as far as he has and still come second and not throw his toys out of the pram, we saw it with Mark Webber and we saw it with Danny Ricciardo, where if you play second fiddle at Red Bull, this might be an Australian thing, but you tend to throw your toys out the pram and be on the radio a lot. Whereas Sergio has done his job and he's done it well. And yeah, there's mistakes and errors that may be down to getting used to a car, but he has said from simulations, he is more comfortable in this car this year. So if anything, a closer title race between Perez and Verstappen would be great. I'm like I said yesterday, I'm really hopeful of the entire pack converging together, and hopefully we have 1, 2, 3, 4 is a challenge throughout the season. Hamilton's got all to play for in last season, and for that romantic finish at Mercedes, Leclerc and Sainz can go gloves off. and then Norris and Piastri chasing an actual Grand Prix win. Not to mention potentially Red Bull 2.0 in the form of RB and Aston Martin. So potentially it's a tight season across the board. And I'm going to use this phrase one more because I've used it in 3 videos so far, but it could be gloves off for quite a few teams this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, saying, like for example, you've got Red Bull with the RB20. Max is obviously going to be hunting for that title. He's the favourite, obviously. But you have Mercedes with a revised concept. You have Ferrari with a brand new, completely revised car. McLaren with a revised car, but room to improve, they say. Aston Martin aiming for podiums. This is going to be a tricky season for Max Verstappen, I think.
Definitely, you're quite right. And because it won't be a case of, I hope it won't be a case of complete dominance. I know I just said that looking at that car, it probably is going to be, but I hope it's not, because it would be great for the qualifying shootouts to be much closer. It would be great to have more people on pole position that isn't a Red Bull. And finally, more competition towards the end of the Grand Prix as well. I, more than anyone, even as a Red Bull fan, do not want 12 to 30 seconds between first and second. It's not an interesting Grand Prix situation. So that's huge for the sport as a whole. But for me personally, as a fan, I want to see closer Grand Prix racing.
Yeah, definitely. You want to see a bit of action. Well, before we finish up, seeing this is the last video, I'm going to ask you this one question just to get your straight prediction. Do you think, off the top of your head, it'll be another run of Red Bull, or do you think there will be some serious competition from a Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, etc. this year? What way do you think it's going to go?
Now that I've seen that car, Red Bull are going to take it. But as much as I want to wind up Matisse and Joe about 24 out of 24, maybe 18 to 20 wins this season, and hopefully split evenly between Max and Sergio. The dominance is still there. If I was to say a more hopeful prediction, Red Bull still win it, but they win it by one Grand Prix towards the end, and we have Ferrari and or Mercedes in the running, and that would be my prediction this year. So either Red Bull, but it's Max and Sergio doing it together, or super tight until second to last race of the season.
That's very interesting. I like that idea of a 3-car fight.
What about you? What do you think?
Saying that, like you're saying, yeah, the Red Bull 20, looking at it now, or the RB20, is looking like it's going to dominate again. There's some really cool things there that I really like and are really interesting. But the thing is, with this year, it feels different to last year. There's a lot more kind of different concepts, different ideas. There's going to be teams that got it spot on. There's going to be teams that got it wrong. And it's going to be very interesting. I just get this feeling that maybe it's because we had such a boring season last year, but I just get this feeling this is going to be like a 2012 season again, where we're going to have a Red Bull or a Mercedes saying, this is it, this is our car, but it's not going to work. And there's going to be other teams that creep in. Maybe that's just hopes. Maybe that's just a bit of kind of false hoping and praying that it'll be a better season. But I just get that feeling amongst the teams. It feels different. People feel, there's better designs. There's more things going on. I think it could be interesting.
That's a great point. And there's that old saying that hardship breeds innovation. And there's nothing harder for the other 9 teams than having Red Bull win everything. And the flip side, there's nothing harder for Adrian Newey than to go, how do we develop this more? How do we push this further? So both sides of the coin are hardship in a different way, from a different perspective. So it might be just that we either see Adrian Newey having to innovate something so far that it doesn't quite work, which we may see inklings at Bahrain one way or the other, or more than likely it's the concertina effect of enough teams catching up to Red Bull, and like I say, at least the 3 or 4 teams behind them closing that gap, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, the one season I keep thinking back to is 2012. They came out with the RB8, and much like the RB20, everybody kind of looked at it and went, oh, that's quick. But the thing that actually happened was with the RB8s, I'm sure you remember, for the first half of the season at least, the car just didn't work in race conditions. And all of a sudden, they went from race wins to 5th and 6th. The only reason Vettel picked up the title in the end is because he won 4 races in a row and he was consistent all season, scoring points. So there's always that room for that kind of push it a little bit too far, and it suddenly stops working the way you want. So
the one thing Red Bull have to fall back on is that they do not have mediocre drivers that are just performing in a good car. They have two of the best drivers performing in one of the best cars. So the fallback could be that best car, not great driver, but they're more here, and that might be how it ends up working. Equally, it's Adrian Newey, and more often than not, he's spent enough time working that out to go, this is going to work for this. And also, if the RB20 doesn't work, they could just race the RB19 and they'd still do great. So
guaranteed podiums. Well, those who doubt Adrian Newey prepare to fail. So thank you very much, Jamie, for joining me again. And I'll leave it there because when we end up waffling all night, I don't want to do that to you on your holidays. So
no, it's been great, Quillen, and this whole series of videos has been great fun. And especially, we'll probably have to end up ranking each one from best to worst launch as well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to try and get a bit of a prediction going before the start of the season. See where we are this time next year.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much, Jamie, for joining us, or joining me, should I say. And thank you very much for joining us on the channel here. I hope you enjoyed these selection of videos we did on the car launches of 2024. Make sure to keep an eye on the channel now next week for pre-season testing, all your news and updates and whatever comes next. And it's not long now, just about 2 weeks tomorrow, I think, till FP1 gets under. No, 2 weeks today, actually, Thursday evening, because we'll be running the Grand Prix on a Saturday in Bahrain. 2 weeks today, we'll be racing and underway for the first weekend of the season. So make sure you join us here at On Track GP. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you soon.
See you guys. Bye bye.